Hello, hello, and welcome. I am here to speak to you about the next full moon that we have, which is in Scorpio, and it is a Scorpio eclipse. Now, this is actually going to be the last Scorpio eclipse that we're going to have for around 9 years, and the last Scorpio South Node eclipse that we're going to have for around 18 years. So it's our real opportunity to close off a big process and let go of a lot of shit, literally and figuratively, because Scorpio does rule the rectum, does rule the stuff we don't want to look at, that which is smelly, that which is below the covers, so to speak. So this is a really good time for us to look at where are those things in our life that we are not wanting to look at? Where is that septic wound that we just keep putting a bandage on and pretending that it's not happening? Where are we not releasing that which is septic, toxic, pussy, fecal? Let it go. Okay, so this is very powerful from that perspective. I also just want to remind you that Mercury stationed retrograde, from the point of the full moon, which is on the 5th, it will have been about 2 weeks prior, I think, and stationed retrograde at 15 degrees of Taurus. Now, this eclipse is happening at 14 degrees of Scorpio, which is opposite the sun at 14 degrees of Taurus. The sun is only 1 degree off the point at which Mercury went retrograde. So there is already some, work that we've been doing in this space. We've been the theme that's been coming through for me is that feeling of loosening a knot. If we want to untie the knot and it's really, really tight, the first thing you have to do is start to tease it a little, tease it apart, soften it so that you can start to unpull those threads and untangle that knot. And that is very much a feeling that I'm getting. And I feel like the Mercury retrograde process has kind of helped us a bit to soften the knot by the time we get to this eclipse. I do also want to remind you that don't worry about exactly where you see things happening in terms of Sagittarius rising. That's just where I'm from. It most likely will be different from wherever you're from. So don't worry too much about what sign is where in the houses on this chart. Rather look at where the planets are. And then ideally, we have spoken about this before, you'll take it to your own chart and you'll say, right, well, where is Taurus in my chart? So for my purposes, I would say Taurus is in the 9th house. So this kind of thing is happening in my 9th house. Where is Scorpio in my chart? And where, in fact, to be more specific, is 14 degrees of Scorpio in my chart. Do I have planets or points there? Is it just a empty house? Because even if you don't have planets there, it's still pertinent. However, if you do have strong energy in any of the fixed signs, which would be Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, then you're going to feel this more because those are the spaces that are getting kind of the extra pressure crunch. And I really want to point out the Pluto square the nodes business. So Pluto, and this is actually the theme that will have come through in my newsletter. If you don't receive my free monthly newsletter and you'd like to, go onto my website, link is in the bio, and you can subscribe and you'll get that every month. But also you can look in my blog posts and you will see the updates on those. So that was really my theme, is the Pluto square the nodes. And here's Pluto in Aquarius, fixed sign, at 0 degrees, and the nodes are at 3 degrees. They move backwards, so they're moving closer to Pluto as we speak, and Pluto's moving slowly, but closer to them. And in fact, the nodes are going to get closer and closer and be exactly square Pluto, and then they will start moving off into the next sign base that we're going to be working on. And we're already beginning to feel the transition of the eclipse axis. So our last eclipse, this new moon that's been just prior to this eclipse, was in Aries. That's on the next eclipse axis. So you can see here, we've been dealing with Taurus and Scorpio. They're opposite each other. That's how it works. And the nodes are about to move. So now we're starting to already feel the eclipse axis between Aries and Libra. And I have mentioned this before, but this is a double whammy, this eclipse season that we're in, of Mars-ruled eclipses, because Mars rules Aries, where we had our new moon eclipse, or our solar eclipse, and Mars rules Scorpio, where we're having our lunar eclipse, our full moon eclipse. So this is a double Mars-ruled energy. So what's happening with Mars? That's always what you want to go and ask yourself. Well, Mars is sitting here in Cancer. He has completed his very long, arduous, reflective, retrograding process through Gemini. He is now moving through the subsequent sign, which is watery, which is emotional, which isn't really a sign he's super comfortable in. However, he is able to really harness some of that reflectiveness that he maybe uncovered and unraveled a little of in the Gemini, and he's feeling a little bit more sensitive and nurturing towards whatever themes are showing up. Okay, so he's not as kind of fiery, aggressive, feisty as he sometimes can be. The mama bear energy in him might be coming out a little intensely at the minute, and that's something that, depending on, and that's not a gender thing, that maternal nurturing type of theme comes up in Cancer. And so there might be a sense of, I'm going to fight for my children, whether those are actual children or child projects or whatever it is, fight for the kind of child energy, because Mars can fight, Cancer is mothering. And so there might be with this a little bit of a tendency to try to hold on a little bit more. Cancer's also got those pincers, those crab pincers, that's like a bit smothering at times. Now, here we are in this eclipse with Scorpio, where we're supposed to be releasing and letting go of stuff. But there's also Mars, the ruler of Scorpio, saying, but not this, or I want to hold on to this because I'm not ready to let this go. It's where we kind of feed the feelings, we might get a little bit too much. So that's something definitely to watch out for, especially if you are somebody who is very fixed. So remember those fixed signs of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. If you are very naturally fixed, which means that you don't let go easily, then this is going to be an exacerbated energy for you, because it is a fixed sign eclipse, because Pluto is in the fixed sign of Aquarius for the first time in like 250 odd years. And there is this sense of, it is fated and destined for me to evolve through releasing this, but this is the thing I don't want to release. This is the thing I believe I can't live without. This is the thing that I am going to dig my heels in, clench my jaw, and resist releasing. Now, Pluto's a tricky chap in the sense that he's going to demand it from you. And if you do not resist, if you kind of drop into yourself and go, okay, I don't want to let this go, but I know that I need to, then Pluto will gift you back. There will be rewards for that willing surrender. But if you don't willingly surrender it, Pluto's going to take it from you anyway. So this is where Pluto is that planet that there's no point resisting. In the grand scheme of your soul's development, Pluto is actually helping you, but it doesn't usually feel like it. And if this is a strong personal Pluto transit for you, so let's say Pluto is on your sun or on your moon or on your ascendant or something like that, then this is going to be even more strongly true for you. Or if you have strong fixed signs, especially early degrees. This eclipse is happening in the mid-range degree. So you also want to look at what's happening in the mid-range degrees of my fixed signs. And where in my life is that happening? What house is it happening in? So, for example, in this particular chart, the moon is happening here in the 12th house. So then you would ask yourself about your 12th house topics. If you had this happening in your 12th house. Okay, so that would just depend on your own chart. I'm not going to get too much into that because it's going to be a little bit complicated for the reasons that we're talking here. But just to say, we're very strongly working with the fixed energies, and we definitely want to be aware of what Mars is doing because he's in charge of this eclipse. Venus is coming to the end of her journey in Gemini at this point. So she's going to end up going into Cancer as well. And when Venus gets into Cancer, she will maybe calm the waters a little bit for Mars and help him to find a way to let go of some of those things he's holding on to, because she is sort of gentler with that. So that might be handy. And we still do have Mercury, retrograde in this eclipse phase. So exactly what Mercury sort of began when he stationed retrograde, he's still processing and working for. There is a reflectiveness, and this is also extremely close to Uranus, this eclipse, with the sun extremely close to Uranus, and only 4 degrees difference in sort of opposition as well. So Uranus is very present in this eclipse, and of course Uranus is that earthquake, like land shaker, revolutionary planet. So and this is our last Scorpio eclipse. And then in 6 months' time, I think it's late October, is our last Taurus eclipse. And so there is this dynamic that's happening here where we are actually at a point of going, have we done the work through this eclipse axis? And eclipse cycles take about 18 months. So as we're coming to the end of that, have we done the work? Have we known what to take on board and what to let go of to move forward for our greatest good? And this eclipse is primarily more about let go of the last things that you needed to let go of in Scorpio, even further exacerbated by the concept of Pluto being square the nodes. When we get to the Taurus eclipse, it's going to be more a case of now that you've made space for, it's like you pulled all the things out of that flower bed, and you put all the compost in, and now what are you going to plant in that flower bed? So this is our opportunity to make sure we're starting with a clean bed, and putting into the soil that which we want to keep, because some things that we pull out form the compost for the next phase. And some things really just need to be eradicated. Like if that thing is creating toxicity in the soil or too much acidity in the soil, or if it's covered in aphids or something like that, it needs to be completely taken out. You can't leave it in the bed. Whereas some things you can chop up and dig into the soil and know that those dandelions, you don't really want them as weeds in your flower bed, but they're full of all sorts of nourishing nitrates that can be fixed into the soil, and that's something that will be good for future crop. So if you're getting my analogy, we are really at the phase of let me pull out what I don't need. Let me understand what I'm leaving behind in terms of the composting of these things, because we are a sum of our parts. So even if we're ending a process, closing a door, saying goodbye to something, letting something go, that thing still informed who we are now. And so we might be closing the door to that, but the experience, the part of it that is who we are, that is still there. So for better and for worse, but this is when we're doing this kind of work, we're trying to say, how can I go into this or something better? How can I use the challenge to inform a better, fuller, healthier, more true me moving forward? Because it is always about doing that self-work. And a lot of the themes that I'm finding coming up are about you tend to the drop that you are, rather than trying to fix the whole ocean. Because if you can keep your frequency, your drop clear, then you're a clear drop in the full ocean. And this is the development trajectory that we move forward with. So Mercury's retrograde in Taurus is very important of this sort of reflective breakdown of that old thing. And Uranus there going, right, do I need to aggressively push you in a new direction, or have you got this, So I think that's all I'm really going to speak strongly into for this reading. I hope this has been informative. Remember that you take it to your own chart to get more insight. And if you're really feeling this eclipse cycle has been intense and you're looking for personal guidance, remember to get in touch with me. The link will be in the bio. So thank you very much for your time, and I wish you a beautiful eclipse.